you'll see that in a table that doesn't appear on the wall, but I hope you'll pick it up before you leave if you didn't get it in your kit, which gives you the strange figures that come out of this. The much larger numbers of voting eligible population relative to census is particularly puzzling for 2000, when we had a full census rather than the 2006 American Community Survey. Since the overall base population counts for the state and Los Angeles County and other counties were identical for both the California Department of Finance and Census. So the discrepancy has to arise in either a larger count in California of the voting age population than census, but that would mean then a correspondingly smaller number of less than 18 population, which you don't see, or a much smaller count of the non-citizen population, or a mixture of the two. I don't really have an answer, but it is a reasonable suspicion that much of the extra 1.6 million voted estimate population, if you're looking at this, for the state, the additional 1.6 million eligible voters estimated in 2000 by the California Secretary of State, is due to the inclusion of illegal aliens. The additional 1.6 million, if registered at the prevailing statewide rate for 2000 in California, and I have those rates here and footnoted on the bottom of this table, would have added more than 1.1 million to the voting rolls, and by my 80% formula, and up to 900,000 questionable or ineligible voters statewide. This unusual bulge of California's registered voters for 2000 suggests that even the high estimates made by this report in some cases may be too low. Let me get that for me. Should citizens be concerned that there could be more than 2 million ineligible voters in the forthcoming elections? After all, that would be less than 2% of the expected turnout in November. I believe they should be concerned. Non-citizen voters are heavily concentrated in California, New York, Texas, and Florida, states that are rich in electoral votes. In 3 presidential elections since 1960, the number of popular votes separating the 2 top contenders have been less, in some cases significantly less than 2 million votes. In 2004, John Kerry lost Nevada by 22,000 votes and New Mexico by about 7,000. Both these margins of defeat are within the estimated non-citizen vote turnout in those 2 states. Of course, the egregious example is Bush versus Gore in 2000. Was that 2000? And where 11 states that could have swung the balance to Gore, and which were all won by Bush, but by very small majorities, that a different result. The majorities that prevailed in those states and delivered them to Gore were all within this margin of estimated non-citizen turnout. They were just a swing, and any one of those states would have given Gore the victory. The growing number of local jurisdictions where non-citizens are a majority is creating, California has 12 cities where non-citizens are a majority, and it has 18 more where non-citizens, adult non-citizens have 40% or more, has been creating a fairness issue in some circles about representation. Another factor working to make this happen and creating demand for a greater liberality on registration of voters and voter participation. The delays of an overworked naturalization system in clearing applications encourages the impatient to vote, feeling justified, having waited patiently, feeling justified to go ahead and vote without the benefit of the paperwork. Finally, the rise of attractive ethnic candidates in this coming election, or certainly in one case in this coming election, such as Anthony Villaraigosa in Los Angeles, and now in Texas, Rick Noriega, who's running for Senate against John Conran. That certainly animates non-citizens as well as citizen voters among the co-ethnics. And I believe, although a great deal of the organizations that have been fingered for registering illegal aliens, such as ACORN and Democracia Ahora and other Hermandad Nacional Mexicana, often argued that the misregistrations occurred as a result of confusion on the part of the person being approached, the non-citizen thinking he was a citizen or not realizing what he was doing, or that the motor voter system, which sort of registers people in spite of himself. I rejected that for a while, but after working on this for a while and seeing the depth of ignorance in the general population, particularly among people who know better, about the distinction between a legal resident alien and a citizen, and between getting your citizenship and getting your green card, even the President of the United States has showed confusion about that. Wow. That I can understand why many people would wonder, well, am I a citizen or not? I have a green card. And, of course, the unscrupulous voter registrant, animated by an ideological cause or for a particular candidate, or in the case of those who register voters for money, the bounty hunter type voter register, he would certainly take advantage of that. He would be inclined to give assurance. Oh, yes, yes, you're eligible to vote. While a 1996 law makes registration a crime for non-citizens, enforcement actions are negligible and offer few risk and have a weak, very weak deterrent effect. The 1993 motor voter registration legislation in effect made it harder, as I said earlier, for ineligible aliens not to register. Now, figures I just got show that about 40 to 45% of all voter registrations now are not by going down to the voter registration office or even by doing it by mail, but by going to a government office either to get your driver's license or to get welfare or to consider recruitment into the armed forces. And I wonder how many of these people really realize what's happening, that they're being registered. But that's made a major difference in the ease in which registration can be attained. The voter registration card itself has certain attractiveness to people who are not citizens, particularly if they're illegal aliens. It's desirable as a supporting document for proving citizenship, and despite all its faults, dismayingly, this corrupted document of the voter registration card was still accepted until the beginning of this year by the Border Patrol and the Department of Homeland Security as a supporting proof of citizenship to show at U.S. ports of entry. Two other factors for laxity and fraud in the electoral system have been, first, the farming out of voter registration to nonprofit ethnic and open border and civil rights interest groups and to bounty hunter registration gatherers. Ethnic, civil rights, open border, human rights organizations, often aided by foundation funding, have been working with urgency and militancy in the present pre-election climate to expand their strength at the polls for the same reason all other organizations push voter registration, to punish enemies and reward friends, in this case for the amnesty impasse on the Hill in the last 2 years. Second form of laxity is the great expansion of online registration. Absentee and mail-in voting now accounts for about a third of all the ballots cast. This form of voting, and in Oregon State, I don't have to remind you, it's all done by mail. This form of voting precludes any opportunity for personal scrutiny by election officials of applicants for registration and voters at the polls.